සුවඳ තවත් තිකු කලක් රැඳෙන්න ඩබල් පර්ෆියුම් ලුක් සමගින් එන නව සන්ලයිට් රෝස්.
Tonight, sufficient jabs. Sri Lanka to receive 1.45 million AstraZeneca doses from Japan and 1.5 Moderna doses through COVAX as daily vaccination records tumble. Hold your horses. The World Health Organization warns against mixing and matching vaccines other than with Pfizer.
It will be a chaotic situation in countries if citizens start deciding when and who they should be taking a second or a third or a fourth dose.
High and dry. The government says only 4 more weeks of online classes before schools reopen as parents call teachers' strike selfish. Something fishy. Court is told that data between Express Pearl and Colombo port is lost, prompting the vessel's captain to accuse the CID of concealing the truth. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Tuesday, the 13th of July, 2021.
ඒ කියන්නේ ලයිෆ් බෝයි අවස්ථා 10කදී ලෙඩ රෝග 10කට හේතු වන වෛරස් ඇතුළු විෂ පිෂවලට එරෙහිව සටන් කරනවා කියලා.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhamike Kanaka. Now, with the World Health Organization having warned countries to ramp up vaccinations as the Delta variant looks to become the dominant global strain, Sri Lanka's national rollout seemed to be up to the task as another daily record was surpassed yesterday. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's vaccine stocks are set to receive a further boost this month, with Japan having confirmed that it would provide 1.45 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccines through the WHO's COVAX facility. Now further, Sri Lanka will also be getting 1.5 million doses of Moderna vaccines, also via COVAX, this Friday. Ever since walk-in vaccinations were open to the general public, there had been a significant rise in the number of vaccinations conducted on a daily basis. The new walk-in vaccination centres are operated by the Triforces, and the numbers improved almost immediately. Yesterday saw 232,526 persons being given a jab against COVID-19, which is the record for the highest daily vaccination. The previous high came on Thursday last week, with 222,010. According to the State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, 173,988 people had been given the first dose from the Sinopharm vaccine, while 40,276 persons had received the same vaccine as their second dose. Further, 13,357 doses of the Sputnik vaccine had also been administered yesterday, with 4,725 people being given the Pfizer jab. Meanwhile, 180 people got their second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. As of last evening, 4,215,519 people had obtained the first dose of any COVID vaccine, while 1,504,809 persons in the island had been fully vaccinated with 2 doses against COVID-19. Today was also no different. Vaccinations were conducted at 243 centres established across 20 districts. Meanwhile, Japan says that it will provide 1.45 million doses of AstraZeneca's vaccine manufactured in Japan to Sri Lanka via the WHO's COVAX facility. In a Facebook post, the Japanese embassy said that the consignment is expected to arrive in the island during the coming weeks. It added that the decision was taken in response to the request by the Sri Lankan government and as a part of Japan's support for ensuring equitable access to safe and effective vaccines for as many people as possible in the fight against COVID-19. In what is a further boost to the national inoculation drive, State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, confirmed today that the country will also be getting 1.5 million doses of the Moderna vaccine via the WHO's COVAX facility on coming Friday. As Sri Lanka appear to have overcome its vaccine procurement hiccup, so the scheduled 2 doses of a COVID vaccine can be administered to the people, there are some other countries which are fixated on giving their people a 3rd dose. Identified as a booster shot, the need for it is advocated by vaccine manufacturers and other champions of the idea based on what they say is evidence of greater risk of infection 6 months after inoculation and the spread of the highly contagious Delta variant. Pfizer and its partner BioNTech plan to ask US and European regulators to approve a booster dose following a 2-shot regime of their COVID-19 vaccine. Meanwhile, Israel said on Sunday that it will begin offering a 3rd dose of the Pfizer vaccine to adults of weak immune systems, but it was still weighing whether to make the booster available to the general public. But the World Health Organization holds a different stance on the need for a booster at this stage.
It may well be that you need boosters after a year or 2 years, but at this point, after 6 months of the primary dose, there doesn't seem to be any indication. And we'll continue to work with public health agencies around the world who are tracking this data. SAGE is following the evidence very carefully, and we will make recommendations on boosters when we think that they are needed. It has to be based on the science and the data, not on individual companies declaring that their vaccines should now be administered as a booster dose.
While calling the talk of a booster shot by some countries at a time when there are countries which are yet to start vaccinations, the WHO chief singled out Pfizer and Moderna as companies that were aiming to provide booster shots in countries where there were already high levels of vaccination.
While many countries haven't even started vaccinating, and another country has already vaccinated majority of its population, the 2 doses, and now moving to a 3rd dose, which is the booster, it's really not only disappointing, it's seriously disappointing. It doesn't even make any sense. Instead of Moderna and Pfizer prioritizing the supply of vaccines as boosters to countries whose populations have relatively high coverage, we need them to go all out to channel supply to COVAX, the Africa Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, and low and middle income countries which have very low vaccine coverage.
Meanwhile, there were rumours of some persons in the island who have had the 1st dose from a particular vaccine discarding their vaccine card and opting for 2 doses anew from a different vaccine by falsifying their information. Some individuals had allegedly sought 2 doses from the Sinopharm jab or the Sputnik vaccine after having the 1st dose of AstraZeneca. Though this may seem like a successful gambit to be fully vaccinated quickly, experts say otherwise.
So it's a little bit of a dangerous trend here where people are we're in a data-free, evidence-free zone as far as a mix and match. There is limited data on mix and match. There are studies going on. We need to wait for that, and maybe it will be a very good approach. But at the moment, we only have data on the AZ vaccine, Oxford AstraZeneca, followed by Pfizer. So it will be a chaotic situation in countries if citizens start deciding when and who they should be taking a 2nd or a 3rd or a 4th dose.
As for the daily caseload, there were 1,568 new infections yesterday. The Kaluthara district reported the most number of new cases with 225. Colombo, meanwhile, confirmed 154 infections, while 153 were recorded from Gampaha. Outside the Western Province, Ratnapura confirmed 150 new cases, while Nuwara reported 135, Ampara 87 and Batticaloa 75. The other 18 districts accounted for 509 infections. 8 imported cases were also among yesterday's caseload. Meanwhile, with the confirmation of 1,404 fresh cases during the day, the total number of active COVID cases in the country rose to 26,408. The recoveries, however, also rose, with 1,328 being confirmed to have been discharged from their respective treatment centres. That puts the total COVID recoveries in the island at 247,579. The police, meanwhile, say that operations will be conducted in public spaces to monitor whether people adhere to quarantine law, even though some restrictions are now relaxed. In the meantime, several areas of the country were brought out of isolation this morning. Several areas were brought out of isolation today at 6 a.m. The National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 said that the Olanda and Rabavatta villages in Handala North Gramanilladari division of the Gampaha district were brought out of isolation. In the Batiklo district, Manjanthoduwe North Gramanilladari division and the Jinnah Road located in Manjanthoduwe South Gramanilladari division were also released. Further, the isolation status imposed on the Singhapura Gramanilladari division in Colombo district was also lifted this morning. Though some of the restrictions which were in place were relaxed on Saturday, the police urged people to refrain from gathering in groups, as it is still not permitted owing to COVID risks.
We are conducting constant operations in respect of public places, customer centres, to check whether the general public have adhered with quarantine rules and regulations.
However, looking at some of the scenes from Western countries may lull people into believing that the COVID threat is no more. Anyone watching the recently concluded European Football Championship would think that England is free from COVID. Even the World Health Organization is concerned about the image and the message such scenes send to the rest of the world.
Look at what the rest of the world is looking at. Hundreds of millions of people in the southern hemisphere, hundreds of millions of people in developing countries are looking on as their health systems collapse, and they're going, wow, they're having a lot of fun in Europe. Life is normal there. And it's more difficult for governments in those situations in those countries to continue to implement public health and social measures because their populations are looking at this and saying, hey, it's all over in Europe. I mean, maybe it's all over here. So there are also issues around the imagery we create around mass gathering events.
Big 3.
Now, veering away from the pandemic situation, the court heard today that the communication records between the captain of the ill-fated vessel Express Pearl and the harbour master is lost. This was conveyed by the CID, which prompted the legal counsel representing the chartered vessel's captain to accuse it of attempting to conceal the truth. The case pertaining to the feeder vessel Express Pearl catching fire while being anchored off the port of Colombo on the 20th of May was taken up today before the Colombo Additional Magistrate Lochini Abevikrama. Appearing on behalf of the Criminal Investigation Department, Deputy Solicitor General Madhav Tennakon told the court that the data pertaining to the exchange between the vessel's captain and the harbour master during the time when the ship caught fire has been erased, adding that a comprehensive investigation is launched into the matter by the CID. The Deputy Solicitor General noted that the loss of data was probed via the local agent of the relevant telecommunications machines manufacturer and that the machine was at the harbour master's office. He also informed the court that the data had been lost between the 1st of May and the 10th of June, and statements had been recorded from the harbour master and the office staff pertaining to the matter. Deputy Solicitor General Madhav Tennakon went on to say that if those responsible over the incident is uncovered, they will be taken to book irrespective of their stature. In the meantime, President's Counsel Saraj Jayaman, appearing on behalf of the vessel's captain, accused the CID of deliberately neglecting to examine the data of the telecommunications machine which was set up at the harbour master's office. While noting that examination of relevant data would have made it possible to uncover the truth behind the incident, he said that the claim of data loss gives rise to suspicion. He added that he suspects that the CID is attempting to conceal the truth. The President's Counsel went on to say that the harbour master's irresponsible conduct has contributed towards the considerable deaths of marine creatures. In the meantime, Deputy Solicitor General Madhav Tennakon informed the court that the overseas travel ban can be lifted on 14 of the 24 members of the ship's crew who are under investigation. After considering the matter, the additional magistrate ordered the Controller of Immigration and Emigration to lift the overseas travel ban on the 14 relevant crew members. The case will be taken up again on the 30th of July. Now, the government is looking to promote the use of electric vehicles in Sri Lanka as it looks to steer the country towards clean energy. A strategic plan in this regard has been approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. With that, let's take a look at some of the decisions made by the Cabinet when it met last evening.
Due to limited facilities at the National Child Protection Authority for the video recording of testimonies of children who have been subjected to various forms of abuse, the Cabinet of Ministers has approved a proposal to set up a total of 9 video recording units at hospitals covering all 9 provinces. Further, in a bid to reduce vehicular emissions in the country, which according to studies carried out by the University of Moratuwa is responsible for a staggering 60% of air pollution, the Cabinet also approved a proposal to prepare a strategic plan to promote the use of electric vehicles in Sri Lanka. It also gave the green light to submit an updated list of nationally determined contributions after adjusting government policies to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Further, a national monitoring committee is also to be appointed to determine if the contributions are being implemented efficiently and productively. In addition, approval was also granted to a proposal to launch a promotion by the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau to attract digital tourists to the country by introducing a long-term visa category. Further, the Cabinet has given the go-ahead for the drafting of amendments to the Water Resource Board Act No. 29 of 1964, which will give the board legal provisions to impose penalties for offences related to the overutilisation and pollution of groundwater by commercial entities. The Cabinet also approved a proposal to appoint a committee headed by the Secretary to the Ministry of Water Supply to prepare a preliminary draft of amendments to the National Water Supply and Drainage Board Act. Meanwhile, the tabling in Parliament of the mid-year report on the financial situation of the country for 2021, issued on the 30th of June by the Minister of Finance, was also approved. In addition, the Cabinet has also approved a proposal to pay farmers who produce and use organic fertilizer a sum of 12,500 rupees per hectare, not exceeding 2 hectares.
We will see you shortly on the other side of this break. Bear with us.
ගෙදරකට තේ හදනවා කියන්නේ වෙනම වැඩ. එක එක්කිනාගේ පදම වෙනස්. මැලිබන් තේ ගෙදර පදමට තේ.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, online education for Sri Lanka's 4.3 million students were affected for another day as government teachers continue to stay away from holding online classes today as well. The strike has been heavily criticised by parents, who called it a selfish move, while Cabinet spokesperson Keheli Rambukwelle labelled union agitators behind it as despicable. In the meantime, Minister of Education Professor G.L. Piris says that online classes will only be required for another 4 weeks, as plans are afoot to reopen schools next month. Teachers at government schools withdrew from conducting online classes yesterday in protest of the arrest and quarantine of General Secretary of the Ceylon Teachers Union, Joseph Stalin, and 15 others. The arrests were made after the cadres staged a protest in violation of the quarantine laws. As a result of the teachers' protest, the education of school children was disrupted for another day today. Further, the teachers have notified the students today that classes will not be held due to an unavoidable reason via WhatsApp. Speaking to AdaDerana, some parents accused the teachers of playing around with their children's lives. Further, they also say that teachers should not seek revenge from the children, irrespective of the issues they might have with the government. However, the situation pertaining to the international schools seemed different. The online classes were conducted for the students of those schools as per usual. In the meantime, Minister of Education Professor G.L. Piris had this to say pertaining to the strike launched by teachers at government schools.
මොන ප්‍රශ්න තිබුණත් අපේ ළමයින්ගෙන් පලි ගැනීම කොහෙත්ම සුදුසු වන්නේ නැහැ. උපරිම උත්සාහය දරනවා මේ වැඩපිළිවෙල ඉදිරියට ගෙන යන්න මාර්ගගත අධ්‍යාපනය තව සති 4ක්. ඊට පස්සේ අපි පාසල් විවෘත කරනවා.
Meanwhile, responding to media queries on the withdrawal by government teachers from conducting online classes, Minister of Mass Media Keheli Rambukwelle critiqued union organisers for jeopardising the education of 4.3 million students.
නීතිමය තත්ත්වයක් තුළ 3-4 දෙනෙක්ගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් තුළ මේ රටේ මෙවැනි දෙයක් කෙරෙනවා නම් ඒ අසාධාරණය හෝ සාධාරණ රටේ ජනතාවට බාර දෙන්න. දැන් අපි උත්සාහ කරනවා channels 16ක් ගේන්න, එක channel එකක් එක පන්තියකට කරන්න, විශේෂ පහසුකම් අවශ්‍ය දරුවන්ට ඒ වැඩපිළිවෙළවල් මේ සියල්ල එක දවසකින් කරන්න පුළුවන් දේවල් නෙමෙයි. හැබැයි පැහැදිලිව තාමත් අපහසු තත්ත්වයන් තුල ඉඳගෙන අපි දැවැන්ත උත්සාහයක යෙදෙනකොට රටේ ජනතාවගේ මෙවැනි මහා විනාශයක් තියෙන වෙලාවක ආර්ථිකයක් එක්ක සටන් කරන වෙලාවක ජීවිතයයි මරණයයි එක්ක සටන් කරන වෙලාවක මෙවැනි දේවල් සම්බන්ධ 43 ලක්ෂයක් මේ රටේ ඉන්න ඒ දරුවන් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන තමන්ගේ ගුරු දේවයන් හැටියට ඉන්න කණ්ඩායම මෙහෙවනම නම් කාරු හොර කීප දෙනෙක් මගේ විශ්වාසය තාමත්ම කාලකන්ණි කණ්ඩායමක් හැටියට මම සලකන්නේ නැහැ.
Despite the chaos the government teachers have created by refraining from online education, the government began vaccinating the school teachers yesterday. That program was worked off today as well.
අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා දින 10ක් ඇතුළත මුළු රටේම ගුරුවරුන් එන්නත් කරන වැඩපිළිවෙල අවසන් කරන්නට. ඒතර මේ දෙන්නේ සයිනෝෆාම් මාත්‍රා තව සති 4කින් දෙවන මාත්‍රාව දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ අවශ්‍ය මාත්‍රා රජය සතු කරනවා. ඒතර අගෝස්තු මාසයේ මුල වෙනකොට එන්නත් කරන වැඩපිළිවෙල සම්පූර්ණ කළ විගස අපිට පුළුවන් වෙනවා අපේ රටේ පාසල් සැලසුම් සහගතව පියවරෙන් පියවර සෞඛ්‍ය නිර්දේශවලට අනුගත වෙමින් ආරම්භ කිරීමට.
In other local stories, Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith sent President Gotabaya Rajapaksa a missive listing out the Catholic Church's concerns with regards to investigations into the Easter Sunday terror attacks, saying that the Catholic community has a right to the truth. Speaking at a media briefing today, His Eminence the Cardinal expressed disappointment and a lack of faith in what he termed probes carried out by the police and a judicial system that follows political agendas.
The National Catholic Spokesman's Committee has sent a 19-page letter to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today, signed by 7 bishops and 27 Catholic clergymen, including Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith. The letter has requested the President to comprehensively investigate the Easter Sunday terror attacks and provide satisfactory answers to the concerns and questions listed in the letter within a month. Speaking at a media conference today, His Eminence the Cardinal expressed his doubts over the ability of a politically compromised police force, criminal investigation department and judiciary in finding out who was really behind the attacks.
පාස්කු ඉරිදින ප්‍රහාරය පිළිබඳ වත්මන් තත්ත්වය ගැන හා ඒ පරීක්ෂණ සහ විමර්ශන පිළිබඳව අපේ අදහස් සුදහස් කීපයක් රජයට විශේෂ ලියවිල්ලකින් අද අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. ඒ පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරය පිළිබඳ තත්ත්වය රටේ ආරක්ෂාවට ලොකු බාධාවක් යන නිගමනයෙන් තමයි හිටියේ. ඒ පිළිබඳව අපි හැම දේශපාලන පක්ෂයකටම දැන්වා ඒ අයට අපේ හිතේ තියෙන දුක් ගැනවිල්ල ඉදිරිපත් කළා. ඒ දේශපාලන පක්ෂවල නායකත්වය අද වෙනතුරු අපට සෑහීමකට පත්වෙන්නට පුළුවන් ආකාරයෙන් මෙම විමර්ශනයන් සිදු කරනවා කියලා අපිට කියන්නට බැහැ. අපි රජයෙන් ඉතාමත්ම ඕනෑකමින් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා මේ විමර්ශන උඩින් පල්ලෙන් කරලා කීප දෙනෙකුව උසාවියට ගෙනල්ලා මේ කාරණාව ඉවරයි කියලා ඒක කාපට් එක යට දාන්න කටයුතු කරන්න එපා. දැනට දේශපාලන නායකත්වයට ඕනේ විදියට ක්‍රියා කරන පොලිසියක් ඒ වගේම දේශපාලන නායකත්වයේ ඇජෙන්ඩාවකට අනුව කටයුතු කරන අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවක්. ඒ වගේම දේශපාලන නායකයෝ ඇඟිලි ගසා පාලනය කරන්නට උත්සාහ කරන නීති පද්ධතියක්. සමග මේ ප්‍රහාරය පිටුපස ඇත්තටම සිදු වූයේ මොකක්ද කියන එක සොයා ගැනීම ප්‍රශ්නාර්ථයක් බවට පත්විය හැකියි. අපි මේ අරගලය මෙතනින් නිමා කරන්නේ නැහැ. මේ සම්බන්ධව හිටපු නීතිපතිතුමා පැහැදිලිවම කිව්වා මේක ගැඹුරු විශාල කුමන්ත්‍රණයක්. එහෙමනම් ඒ කුමන්ත්‍රණය මොකක්ද කියලා දැනගන්නට අපිට අයිතියක් තියෙනවා.
We'll see you soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, the Department of Census and Statistics National Accounts Report says that Sri Lanka's economy showed resilient growth of 4.3% in the first quarter of this year, which it attributes to a normalization of lifestyles of the general public in the new normal. Key among the sectors that showed improvement was the agricultural sector, which enjoyed growth of 6.1%, while services showed moderate growth due to downturn in accommodation, food and beverages.
The National Accounts Report by the Department of Census and Statistics has shown some positive news for Sri Lanka's economy, reporting growth of 4.3% in the first quarter of this year, despite one of the most challenging periods in the island's history. The latest growth figure remains in stark contrast to the 1.8% contraction in the first quarter of last year, when the pandemic first hit the country. Director General of the Department of Census and Statistics, Anura Kumara, in a statement released along with the report, said that the growth could be attributed to a sense of normalization that was witnessed in the lifestyles of people during the prolonged pandemic situation. According to the report, most of Sri Lanka's sectors showed impressive growth throughout the period. The agricultural sector grew by 6.1% in the quarter, buffered by strong growth of 37.9% in tea and 34.8% in cereals. In contrast, services grew at a very moderate 3%, supported by growth in telecommunication of 19.1%, IT programming, consultancy and related activities by 14.9%, financial service activities by 13.1% and insurance by 11.4%. The services sector, which makes up around 50% of the country's GDP, grew at a slower pace due to a 31.9% downturn in accommodation, food and beverages. The Department of Census and Statistics also reported that industrial growth, however, was buffered by an impressive 20% growth in the production of chemicals and basic pharmaceutical products. In addition, other manufacturing subsectors such as non-metallic mineral products grew by 15.3%, rubber and plastic products by 12.9%, textiles, wearing apparel and leather-related products by 8.4%, food, beverages and tobacco products by 6%, and machinery and equipment by 8.1%.
Sri Lankan shares closed higher today at the Colombo Bourse, boosted by gains in financial and consumer staples stocks. The all-share price index settled up 0.60% at 7,913.47 points, while the S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks gained 14.52 points to close at 3,002.27. With that, here's Dimantha Matthew with today's market report.
Today we saw the market in the green again for the second consecutive day. However, not without volatility. Again today we saw a lot of volatility in the market taking place. So at the start of the day we saw a relatively high spike in the market during early trading within the first 30 minutes of trades, and then afterwards we saw a gradually slow downward trend. However, it erased all the gains that were there at the start of the day, but the market managed to close with a marginal gain of 2 points. However, you can say that there was very much more interest coming into the blue chip counters. Resulting from that, what we are seeing is the S&P SL20 having a higher gain of around 20 points during the day, as the overall S&P SL20 index closed just below 3,000 points at 2,955 points.
The rupee, meanwhile, once again remained unchanged at 202.89 cents against the US dollar today. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.